Welcome to Cocktails in the War Room, everybody. What's going on? I'm Mistress Carrie. It's Tuesday night at 8:30, and that means it's our chance to get together and hang out as we do every Tuesday. I apologize for being tardy. We're having a technical difficulty with the Pug Cam tonight, which is why Wednesday's on my lap right now, because normally I have to drag her in here to do the show. And tonight she saw me setting up, came in here, sat on the couch in the war room, was preparing for her close-up. And of course, tonight is the night that I couldn't get the Pug Cam to actually work. And so she came over here and climbed up on my lap. And so there's a good chance that, do you want to say hi to everybody? Say hi. Come here. Say hi. Yeah, say hi. Say hi. There you go. There's your pug noises. All right, don't scratch me. Okay. If you're new to Cocktails in the War Room, that's my co-host. That shows you the giant budget that we have here for Cocktails in the War Room. I can't have a human co-host, so I have a pug co-host. And she has been joining me since episode 1, which was back on March 14th of 2020, and has been with me for all 114 episodes thus far. So welcome to episode 114. Mark says, I needed this. Steve and Caps, Blueberry Cobbler. Karen says, hey, Travis, I got my coffee. Let's see. She did that on purpose so she could snuggle. She probably did, Eric. You know how smart she is sometimes. Let's see. Pug noises. Love it, says Tracy. The nose breath, says Michelle. Wednesday, everybody's saying hi. I'm going to try the Pug Cam now. I don't know why it wasn't working. Yeah, see, these are all the graphics that go on it, but it's not activating the actual camera, and I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why it's not working, and I've tried everything, and I'm going to have to. Oh God, what is that? What? Oh God, what did I do? Current application. What? Oh my God. What just happened? What? See, I'm having technical difficulties tonight, guys. I have no idea what is going on with the software tonight. So Wednesday's literally sitting here in the spot that she would need to be in to turn the Pug Cam on. And I can't turn the friggin' camera on, which is just my luck. Can you just come here? Just sit with me and I'll hold you. See, we can just do the show like this. We don't need a stupid Pug Cam. We did this show with just a phone before. I don't think she's liking the microphone. I think she's scared of it for some reason. Do you want to smell it? What? Okay. I don't know what's going on with her or the Pug Cam. Now my hair is a mess. I don't know what's going on. This is just how today has been. I don't know what is. Do you guys see? What are you doing? High five. High five. High five. Thank you. Thank you. Good girl. She's a ham today. I think it's because of the gift that I got in the mail call. I don't know. Cheers to you guys. I really need this drink. I've been trying to troubleshoot this camera for like the last 20 minutes. I couldn't get it to work. Tracy says, technology is great when it works. Kyle says, you're being hacked. It's one of those nights, Heather. I know it is. That's what it's like on the sangria. And I'm not even on the sangria tonight. And that's why I don't understand. Ron says he loves your pug noises, Wednesday. So good girl. She's sitting right here, but now you guys can't see her. Come over here and sit on my lap. Come sit on my lap so everybody can see how beautiful you are. Come here. You just want to sit on my lap? We're just going to snuggle? Do you just want to fall asleep? You could snore through the whole show. Everybody would love it because they make pug noises. Jeff says, cheers. Steve, the teeth licker. You know what? I don't know if the teeth licker got put in the dictionary in the blog at mistresscarrie.com. We got to put that in there. The famous teeth licking episode. Unplug for a few minutes while you're on the air and let it reboot. Yeah, that doesn't work. It'll just unplug the show. And here she goes with the pillows. And the show was already late getting on tonight. So I don't want to screw it up anymore. I got it on the air. We'll have to deal with the Pug Cam at a later date. What can I do? And the train goes off the rails already. I know. Welcome to our crazy family. Kyle says, miss the AAF days. The noises kill me, says Jeff. Sorry I'm late. Sitting at work with nothing going on, says Jason. Well, thanks for hanging out with us as we do every Tuesday. She's literally knocking all the pillows over here. Wednesday, seriously? She knows it's Tuesday. Like, she's definitely getting herself to the point where this little prima donna is like, I don't want to be your Ed McMahon, Johnny Carson. I want a spinoff show of my own. And who knows, maybe I'll register one. Maybe she'll get her own OnlyFans. I don't know. Sell her dirty underwear. Love the CBGB shirt, says Mark. Okay, so this shirt was actually a gift by a friend of mine named Tommy, who's a record rep in New York. And the last day that CB's was open, he went down there and he messaged me at the radio station, was like, I got you something. So this shirt actually came from, it doesn't say anything commemorative on it, but he went down the last day that CB's was open. And when they had the big send-off celebration and got me this shirt. So, and it's really, really soft. I've had it obviously for years. And oh, there she goes. And I love it. So thank you for the compliment, by the way. Hey, Carrie, just got finished scuba diving for urchins. Ben, I have seen urchins like prepared on like those cooking shows, and it literally just looks like snot. Is it really that good to eat? Because it doesn't look appetizing at all. Ash says she seriously has the cutest squishy face. I know she does. And it's really soft, especially like right here. It's like velvet. Dog Tails in the war room. Don't even give her any ideas, dude, because she would totally love her own spinoff show. She's definitely a prima donna. Okay. Let's start it off. Melissa says, what the F with St. Patty's Day being canceled again? So if you missed the announcement today, the Southie Parade for St. Patrick's Day has been canceled again this year because of COVID, obviously. And you know what's crazy is that we're starting to repeat news stories from last year with the War Room. Last year in the War Room, we were having the conversation about the St. Patrick's Day Parade being canceled. And we've been doing this so long now that we're starting to have the second time we've talked about things, which just blows my mind. The fact that we're at episode 114, and so for anybody that's new to the War Room that's trying to figure it all out, we did 80 shows in a row every night for 80 nights in a row. And then episode number 81, we started just doing every Tuesday night. So we've done 114 episodes altogether, but it started on March 14th. So we're going to have to start thinking about the first anniversary show. And like, I got to line up some guests for that or something. I will tell you guys that the whole music industry usually traditionally shuts down between the middle of December and the end of the year. Obviously with COVID, everything's kind of been weird, but I had a lot of people lined up and then things kind of fell through, and it's been very slow getting the businesses slowly here on the 19th of January. I've been having a lot of conversations just today and on Friday about scheduling interviews, and like things are just starting to slowly start moving with the machine. There's a lot of to be determined album releases, a lot of to be determined tour dates for the fall. I had some calls at the end of last week. I made some calls to some big management companies and some people in the industry that if tours are going to get scheduled, it's going to be through these companies, these organizations that represent some of the biggest artists in the world. And what I'm hearing right now is that there's a possibility that some big shows, some one-off shows could get scheduled for later this year. But as far as massive stadium and arena tours, artists are really nervous about scheduling them and then canceling them again because they did so much of that in 2020. So what I'm hearing is we could see maybe festivals or maybe some one-off shows happening in 2021. But pretty much all of the big power players in the industry are kind of eyeing 2022 as being the safe bet to be able to schedule month-long, multiple month-long giant summer tours because everything is still so up in the air. So it's been a little difficult to get some of the guests lined up because I think people took extended holiday breaks because there just was no reason to kind of rush back to anything. So what I'm saying is I'm starting to have a lot of conversations about scheduling interviews. And I think this spring, especially, we're going to have some pretty big name guests, not only on the podcast, but also in the war room. If half the interviews that I've been trying to set up come through, I'm pretty excited about it. So Christine, no word yet on the big gig. I have not heard anything. The big gig, which of course was supposed to be last year to celebrate WAF's 50th anniversary, rescheduled for April of this year at the DCU. I have no update at this point. I don't know. The guys from Godsmack, the promoters, nobody's really made any kind of determination. And I think part of it was waiting to see, the rollout of the vaccine, to see if they can get insured, if the venue, the big gig last year when it got canceled, the DCU Center became a hospital. And I think to a certain extent, some of these venues don't know if they're going to be needed to be hospitals and or a mass vaccination site. So everything is up in the air. I've been trying to get an update on that and just don't have anything right now. So as soon as I get an update about any of that, I'll let you guys know. But I did want to kind of tip you guys off on some of the conversations that I've been having about when the concert industry is actually going to be able to start scheduling tours and shows again. And a lot of artists are just really afraid to try and put anything on the books this year, put tickets up on sale, and then have to cancel it and refund money. And it's just, a huge disaster. So we'll find out what happens. But as of right now, I don't know the answers to your questions. That's the update. But I am starting to book some guests to come in the war room. People that have been on the podcast in the past, people that have not been on the podcast yet, but that have reached out and said, hey, we want to come on the war room. We're going to do some more alcohol tasting this year. The phone's definitely been ringing over the last week. So pretty excited about all of that. I can't turn the Pug Cam on. So speaking of the podcast, let's talk about a recap of last week's episode, which was episode 32. Frank Scambolone, who has been a professional sound engineer for almost 30 years now. I've known him for, I think we figured out like 23 years or something like that. I met him when he did his first tour with Godsmack, like back in 1999 on the Ozfest. And I thought it was great. He worked for Claire Global, who's a big, giant sound and production company. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about the episode and if you learned anything. I really wanted him to kind of go through what a typical day on the road is. You guys have all seen, if you look at that picture, you've seen that guy in the crowd running sound, pushing buttons and moving faders around and really not known what they did or what their job was like. And now you guys kind of have a better idea. It's really funny because he got a lot of feedback from people that he's toured with. A lot of these bands swap, techs and roadies and stuff. And a lot of people like Frank that have been working for the same company for all these years have done so many tours. And when bands tour together, the crews obviously tour together. And so there are all of these friends that are so used to being on the road together that haven't been able to see each other because they're not touring. And so Frank got a lot of feedback from friends, coworkers, bands that he'd toured with that heard the podcast and thought it was very cool. Danielle says, very interesting to know how long it takes to set up shows. I was hoping that those questions you guys would appreciate just to have an idea. Heather says, I loved this podcast. Melissa says, I still need to listen to it. Bag of Dicks Fest featuring Guar, says Steve. That's a fantastic idea. Jonathan says, love the story about the backwards cable. Yeah, the feeder cable. And that's one of the things, like I always ask the bands about like their Spinal Tap moments and stuff and the screw ups. And so for him to kind of admit, the green new guy, the FNG mistakes that he made early on. Donna says, love the stories. I like hearing how everything that goes into putting on a show. Thanks for sharing that Godsmack song. So last week when I announced Frank was going to be on the podcast, I told you guys that this episode of the podcast was going to ruin one of your favorite Godsmack songs forever. And now if you heard the episode of the podcast, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't listened to the episode yet, spoiler alert, but there have been many a night where Sully has gone up on stage and sung, "I Scam Alone," because he knew that Frank was sitting out there doing sound. So now when you hear "I Stand Alone," you're going to hear in your head Frank Scambalone, and it's ruined it for you forever. Working at Gillette, I've seen the process. It's insane. Days to build, hours to rip down, says Keith. Absolutely. It's amazing the amount of work that goes into a show and the stuff that we never think of, says David. I thought it was really interesting that he thought to give credit to the caterers, getting up first, getting in there, getting set up, and making breakfast for everybody before everybody even piles out of the buses and out of the trucks. It's amazing the amount of work. Let's see. It's one louder, says David. Renee says, my friend had a kidney transplant on January 6th, had to recover alone in the hospital without family by her side. She was released today, but has to go back Thursday for a biopsy because they're questioning the integrity of her transplant. It sucks that we can't be with her and loved ones that are in the hospital. I know, Renee, it's something we've been talking about literally since the end of March and beginning of April, just how difficult it is for people to go through what would normally be extremely difficult, that is only made more difficult by the coronavirus. So obviously everybody here in the war room is sending love to her. Let's see. Home with COVID, it sucks, says Betty. Feel better, Betty. I hope you're doing okay. Obviously, if it gets to the point where you need resources and, just let everybody know here in the war room and we'll do what we can to help you out. Keith says, that's me. I'm part of the catering team there. Well, there you go. But he was also talking about the touring caterers as well. A lot of the big tours have their own because either the artists or people on the crew have specific dietary needs or, they just want to have specific caterers and specific styles of food or whatever. But you always got to pay tribute to the people that keep you fed. So absolutely. David wants to know how the hubby's doing. The hubby is doing great, healthy, and just working. So everything is good. Thank you very much for asking. Let's see. I go in for surgery at the end of February and they canceled it today. I'm sorry, Jen. Tim says, I had COVID. Wasn't bad for me. I hope the same for you. Get better. Let's see. My sister, husband, 3 daughters, and 2 grandkids all have it. This shit sucks. It's crazy. Joe says sibilance, because we talked a lot about the sound check and why they do the certain things and say 1, 2, 1, 2. And it's because you lift on 3, which is the perfect answer for anybody that's ever worked on the road or in tech at all. Love the podcast. Always knew that they are at the center for the best sound. Yeah, exactly. I'm currently quarantined, close contact testing Thursday. Fingers crossed I test negative. So you guys all please be healthy. Take care of yourselves. And yes, we'll be able to go to concerts someday. I thought Frank was incredibly optimistic and sounded really happy considering he's been out of work for almost a year. And definitely, has his perspective and priorities in check, that he's lucky that everybody in his family is healthy and that he's been able to stay home with his wife and his daughter and kind of have that quality time that he normally doesn't have because he's always on the road all the time. So we've been talking about doing this podcast episode for at least 6 months. And so thank you, Lisa. Says I love my hair. She loves my hair. So I was just so happy that he made it on the podcast finally. Are we doing another Food for Vets? Yes, I'm working on getting a date set, and I am hoping that that we're going to get it scheduled for maybe before Valentine's Day. That's the goal right now. So let's see. GNR rescheduled for August, but I don't know at that point, says William. let's see. Did you finish off that mug after you went off the air last week? There's no way I was going to finish 100 ounces of that giant mug. No, I did not finish it. It's delicious. I work in the mall and all the sneezes get a dirty look, says Tracy. Yeah, waiting for Motley Crue. Speaking of Motley Crue, I know we're going to talk about music headlines, but they celebrated their 40th anniversary on Sunday, which is crazy. That was the date that Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee jammed together for the first time, was this past Sunday, which is crazy. So that was episode 32. I'm glad you guys liked it. If you have not listened to it yet, definitely make sure you go and check it out. And that means we can announce who is on the podcast this week. And this is a good one. Episode 33, we're bringing another former AAFer onto the podcast. And with all of his nerdiness and all of his Oak Island paranormal activity craziness, the one and only Maddie Blake, movie actor, television host, comedian, podcast host, former WAF DJ, and all around total Black Crow stalker and weirdo, which is why I love him so much. So Maddie Blake is going to be on the podcast this week. We talked a lot about some old AAF stories. Maddie was in the studio with me. He was co-hosting with Rocco on 9/11. So we talked a lot about that. Just talked a lot about life in general. He's a pretty spiritual guy, and he and I got pretty philosophical in part of this podcast. Just talking about appreciating the little things, having the opportunity to slow life down a little bit. Obviously, the Maddie and Nick show had been let go from WAF. His contract didn't get renewed before the station went off the air. So he had a couple month head start on living life after WAF. And so he and I, talked about what that process is like. And I asked him a lot of questions about Oak Island, which he was telling me is the #1 rated non-scripted show on cable, that the ratings on the show are absolutely crazy. And he hosts the Beyond Oak Island and Drilling Down and all of this other Oak Island stuff. We talked a lot about like aliens and Sasquatch, and we talked about the Black Crows and music. So if you're a Black Crows fan, the corresponding playlist for this episode, you're going to love, because we talked a lot about the Black Crows and just about some of the people that we interacted with at the radio station. I mean, we definitely went down memory lane. We talked a lot about the Boston comedy scene, talked about the Comedy Store in LA and Mitzi Shore. He credits Lenny Clark with helping his career a lot, and obviously credits Hillman because he grew up friends with Hillman. His older brother was really close with Greg. And so that kind of helped to give him a leg up in his career as well. So there's a lot of memories in this episode, and just a lot of really cool life observations. We had a great time talking, and, like LB, like Mike Shue, like Kevin Barbary, it was just great to, after this much time, to sit down and talk to him. And so, that is the episode 33, that's going live at midnight tonight. So I think you guys are really going to like it. He's got an interesting perspective on a lot of things. And we talked a lot about being ready for opportunity, that you need to be prepared for the luck, that the luck is the perseverance and the preparation. And it was an unexpected kind of line that the podcast went on, but we just talked a lot about taking advantage of opportunity and being ready and prepared for that opportunity when it comes. Yes, Bigfoot. He hosts a crazy podcast with Alan Arkin's son, actually, that is called Rated P for Paranormal. And it's all about like Hollywood paranormal stuff. And they go over like paranormal movies in Hollywood. So when you get this episode, if you go into the show notes where I put all the links for everything, the playlist is there. But then all of the links for Maddie are there. So his website, all of his social media links. But then there's all the Oak Island stuff. And then there's the links to his paranormal podcast, which he just talks about how fun it is and how much he loves it. And if there's anybody that is an in-house paranormal expert, it would definitely be Maddie. And the fact that he's found a way to kind of charge forward, he actually credits his openness to the paranormal with how he ended up getting the show Oak Island in the first place. And he tells the whole story on the podcast. So Jen says, I believe 150% in Bigfoot. Always great to talk about memories, says Jeff. Oh my God, it's Carrie sad. Boston had good, used to have a good rock scene. Sucks that it's no more rock stations in Boston anymore. I know, Jimmy, it sucks. But we are moving forward in a lot of different things. One of the reasons why I started the podcast was to be able to expose you guys to new artists and to give new artists a place to go to get to know the Boston market, because there's just no other way to do it. And to be able to hopefully someday be able to help get the word out about shows and to be able to go to shows, interview the bands there, to really be able to start doing events and really galvanizing the rock music in this, the rock music scene in this area, and being able to get way more involved in it. It's just so hard right now because there aren't any shows and none of us can go out anywhere, but it's definitely in the works. And obviously trying to make all of these plans in the middle of a pandemic has not been easy. So luck favors the prepared, says David. Tuesday night is Mistress Carrie and Oak Island. Oh, great. Now, is that when Oak Island is on? Is it on Tuesdays? So I'm competing with Maddie right now. Sorry, Maddie. Taps from Rhode Island. Fortune favors the bold. Whatever happened to Reverend Rob? I believe he has his own podcast, and Boston Rob, I believe, is what he calls it. I agree. I always love listening to that. Let's see. He interviewed the band my son was in. That's very cool. I found tons of hard rock and metal CDs at Goodwill at the store in Quincy. 400 plus CDs for sale. $2.50 a CD. $2.50 a CD. That's pretty cool. Anyone remember the Blackstone Ranger would get interviewed in the street at WAF from time to time? I don't know if I remember that. So there you go. So that's who is going to be on this week's episode. Episode 33, sponsored once again by our friends at Digital Federal Credit Union, or better known as DCU. And I want to thank them once again for sponsoring the podcast. I also want to put a plug in. I know that there's a lot of people that own their own businesses or maybe work for different companies. And, we're always looking for businesses to work with, not only for the podcast, but the War Room. We're always looking to strike up relationships for Mistress Carrie Deals, sponsorships for things like the Sit Rep and a lot of other things. So if there are sponsorship opportunities, if you own a business or if your boss might be interested in sponsoring the podcast, you can reach out directly to me right through mistresscarrie.com. So speaking of the Sit Rep, I'll put a plug in for that every weekday. In less than 5 minutes, I catch you up on all of the rock news, music headlines, entertainment industry updates and info. And you get it just for subscribing to the Mistress Carrie podcast. So Monday through Friday, you get the Sit Rep. And then, of course, Wednesdays, you also get full-length episodes of the Mistress Carrie podcast, which you can subscribe to in any number of places, including all of these. So just go to mistresscarrie.com. You can find the podcast there, but it is spreading like wildfire. And you can now find it, I believe, in almost 60 podcast outlets now, and growing all the time, because the Mistress Carrie podcast is now part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, which is podcasts for music lovers. And there's like 70 music related podcasts that are in the network, including Mike Shue's Long May You Young, which is his Neil Young podcast, which if you like Neil Young, you would love this podcast. So you can check out the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, radio.com, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Deezer, Overcast, TuneIn, Player FM, Pandora, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon, JioSaavn, Ghana, and so many more. So there you go. Check out the podcast. And you can go to pantheonpodcast.com and get more details on the network. And we're still holding strong right now at 98 countries. Now that I joined the podcast network, we are working on a new map, and I will have an updated map very shortly. But right now we're at 98 countries and growing for the Mistress Carrie podcast. Let's talk about some music headlines because there's a lot to talk about. Tommy Vext, who last week we were talking about, had separated from the Bad Wolves. Some people say that he was fired. Other people say that he quit. Last week in the War Room, we talked about it, and the guys in the band had made a statement. However, Tommy hadn't. He released a statement after we got out of the War Room. It was a pretty lengthy statement. And then he launched a GoFundMe, and he was looking for $100,000 in the GoFundMe to be able to go into the studio and record a solo album, which I believe is going to be a solo album of all covers. And he raised the money in 5 days and is currently in the studio working on a solo record. No word yet on exactly when that's going to get released, but he's working with the same creative team, not the same musicians in the band, obviously, but the same creative team that helped put the zombie cover together. So you can find his statement online. It's pretty lengthy, and it does not seem like this was an amicable split between the guys in Bad Wolves and Tommy in it. You know, the band says that it's not just a political thing. Tommy says it is. I really don't know. Speaking of politics, Rage Against the Machine released a 15-minute mini documentary on the backstory behind the lyrics for Killing in the Name, which is really interesting because there have been a lot of pro-Trump rallies where they have been playing Rage Against the Machine, specifically that song, which is all about fighting white supremacy and doesn't really make any sense for white supremacists to be enjoying Rage Against the Machine music because lyrically it goes against everything that you stand for. But this mini documentary, it's like I believe it's up on YouTube. It's a mini documentary about the lyrics from Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name. We talked about Motley Crue celebrating their 40th anniversary this past Sunday. What's crazy is that the same day that Motley Crue began, the humble beginnings of Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee meeting and jamming for the first time, that day was Betty White's 59th birthday. Betty White turned 99 on Sunday. You know the saying, the greatest thing since sliced bread? Sliced bread was actually invented after Betty White was born. You can Google that. I looked it up. It's crazy. So happy birthday to Betty White, who literally is my spirit animal. Like, she is such an example of how to grow old gracefully and with a sense of humor. And, you know, with friends like Slash, how can you go wrong? So happy birthday to Betty White, even though it's a belated birthday, and happy anniversary to the guys from Motley Crue. That happened this past Sunday. Earth-shattering announcement coming from Disney Plus today. So there were 5 seasons of the original Muppets. I have the 3 seasons that they released on DVD a while back. They never released the last 2 seasons on DVD. And they announced today that all 5 seasons of the original Muppet Show are going to start to stream on Disney Plus next month. And I am freaking the fuck out about that. Cannot wait. Remember Mike Shue's tribute to Rush, to Rush's drummer Neil Peart? He played a bunch of Rush songs and deep cuts. One of his last shifts on WAAF. Yes, Rodney, I do remember that. I actually was tweeting back and forth to Mike. I was the one that told him that Neil died. I went running into the studio originally to give Mike a hug, figuring he had seen the news on Twitter or something. And he actually hadn't even seen it. So when I ran up to him and hugged him, he didn't know why I was hugging him and just thought I was being a crazy person. And then when I told him, he just squeezed me. And it was heartbreaking because he is such a huge fan. Then he just asked our boss, Joe, and I, what do I do? And we basically just said, take over the radio station for the entire afternoon and pay tribute to Neil the way that only you can. And he did. And it was, I believe, one of his best days in radio of his career. And he did it better than anybody else could have. So, yeah, I remember that day vividly. So I'm glad you guys are all very excited about the Muppets. Yes, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. Exactly, Trina. I cannot wait for the original episodes. And I'm putting this out there to anybody that has little kids. Once the Muppet Show ends up on Disney Plus, there is no excuse why your kids are going to grow up and not know who the Muppets are. It's imperative that you raise your children right and raise them with the original episodes of the Muppets. And that means the Alice Cooper episode and all of the other, they always had amazing Halloween episodes and the Vincent Price episode. I can't wait to be able to go back and watch all of them because I only have the first 3 seasons on DVD. So the last 2 seasons, they haven't really been seen since they aired because they never got released. So excited. Let's see. There's some new music coming out. Weezer has a new song coming out on Thursday and a new album coming out on the 29th. They're going to release 2 records this year. Van Weezer was the metal album that they were supposed to release last year, but delayed it because of COVID. So they are releasing Van Weezer coming up in May. But next week, they're also releasing an album called OK Human. And the first single from that is coming out Thursday. Also, the new Papa Roach song is part of the UFC's commercial that you've been seeing on ESPN. And so congratulations to the Papa Roach guys for getting the theme song to the UFC fights, which is pretty amazing. Some movies that are in production, something to give you hope for some awesome movies that are going to get released this year. The script for Clerks 3, the first round of the Clerks 3 script is completed, which is amazing. And John Wick 4 is being worked on right now, and they are hoping to start filming that before the end of the year. So that's pretty awesome as well. I want to put a plug in for this Mistress Carrie deal. If you use the code Carrie15, you get 15% off of everything at Canty's Canine Kitchen, which you can get right there, cantyscaninekitchen.com. If you have a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, there's actually a code to get a bigger discount. We always like to give people with Backstage Passes a little extra benefit, but this code is going to be good until Valentine's Day. So if you want to buy your dog or somebody else's dog a sweet Valentine's Day gift, all of the treats that they sent Wednesday a couple weeks ago, there were dried salmon skins and chicken. Wednesday loved the sweet potato. The chicken foot was a little gnarly. Really good sirloin treats. They're all natural. She's got these massive dehydrators to make all of these treats. And they're made right in New Hampshire, which I thought was really cool. So Canty's Canine Kitchen, you get 15% off everything until Valentine's Day if you use the code Carrie15. And again, if you have a business and you are looking to maybe hook everybody in the war room up with a Mistress Carrie deal, we can totally make that happen. Or if you want to put it out on the podcast or whatever, just reach out to me in the contact me section of mistresscarrie.com. But I love being able to give people discounts on stuff just because they watch the War Room or listen to the podcast. I think it's awesome. Mail call this week. I got one thing that I wanted to show you guys. And they actually came from my sister. They were a Christmas gift that was delayed. Are you guys still getting Christmas gifts in the mail because the mail was so backed up? I got Pug socks. Did I show you guys the Pug socks already? I can't remember if I showed them to you last week or not. But that's Wednesday's face on purple Pug socks. So I got my socks. I'm super happy about them. So I wanted to make sure that I thanked my sister for my custom Pug socks. And there's the address for the mail call in case you guys need it. Just a quick update on mistresscarrie.com and the online store. The orders are getting packed like every other day. Travis did tell me that he had an issue with the shopping cart. Every once in a while, I've had an issue with somebody trying to make an order and then it goes through like a day later. So if you guys have any issues with the website, if there's any glitches, if the store's not working, if something's going on, just let me know. Shoot me an email through the website and just kind of let me know what's going on. But that's the update. Things are going really well. I got some new samples in for some products that I'm working on for the spring. And I can't wait to get them moving along and to be able to show them to you. So I'm super excited. Birthdays today, Janis Joplin, Dolly Parton, and Robert Palmer, which is pretty awesome. So happy birthday to Janis and to Dolly Parton, who, is just one of the sweetest, most amazing celebrities. Actually, it was really funny that former President Obama was asked why he did not issue Dolly Parton the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian award that you can be given. And he thought she already had one. And so when he was told by the reporter that no, she doesn't have one, he said, she definitely needs one. I'll talk to Biden. So I hope that one of the first people that that gets it is Dolly Parton. Not only for tackling the literacy issues in kids, she's donated millions of books to kids and has had this reading initiative for decades, but also because very early on in the coronavirus, she donated $1 million of her own money to help fund research for the vaccine. And one of the vaccines, I believe it's the Pfizer vaccine, a lot of that research was done because Dolly Parton donated $1 million. And so that's pretty unbelievable. So cheers to Dolly, and I hope she gets the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I think she totally deserves it. Let's see. Again, just wanted to put the plug in for Patreon. I still haven't gotten Backstage Pass number 100, and there is a pretty awesome Mistress Carrie prize pack that is available for whoever gets Backstage Pass number 100. And also, if you have a Backstage Pass for the entire month of January, every Cocktails in the War Room shirt, either the guys' shirts or the ladies' tees, you get $5 off just for having a Backstage Pass. So if you don't have one, you can get them on patreon.com/Mistress Carrie, or there's a button up in the top right-hand corner of mistresscarrie.com. You just click that and you can get yourself a Backstage Pass. Here's all of the social media places that you can track me down. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Cameo, YouTube, Patreon, obviously. It's all on mistresscarrie.com. And also to put in a plug for the events calendar, which has all of the streaming concerts that are getting announced up there. And I'm trying as quickly as I can to get more dates on more things that I can put in the calendar as soon as COVID lets us actually go outside and do things. So last week, we got into a pretty serious conversation just on the state of everything. And so before the end of the show tonight, I just wanted to, obviously tomorrow's the inauguration, and more arrests have taken place. They actually arrested 2 people today in Massachusetts for taking part in the insurrection at the Capitol. One woman from Natick and I believe a guy from Woburn that were photographed down there taking part in it, and they were arrested by the feds today. What was shocking to me is that the commanding general of the National Guard ordered background checks on the soldiers that were deployed to the Capitol to protect the inauguration. It was actually ordered by the military and obviously by all of the federal agencies that are also in charge of protecting the inauguration, whether it be the FBI or the Secret Service. They announced today that actually 2 soldiers from the National Guard were removed from their positions down at the Capitol pending further investigation because they uncovered extremist activity. And I've been so shocked at, and I don't know if it's me being naive or if it's really that shocking that the amount of people, law enforcement, firefighters, military that were involved in the insurrection. And it really made me sad that we've got people that are literally active in the military and so many veterans that are taking part in all of this. And because I have a huge fear that something awful could happen tomorrow. I hope nothing does. It would be nice to carry on the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power here in the United States. And it's obviously not going to be an inauguration like we've seen before. President Trump is not attending the inauguration. He is not having a meeting with President or soon to be President Biden at the White House. Melania Trump has not invited Dr. Biden to have the tea and tour, which is traditional for first ladies. So there's going to be a lot of things that are different. Obviously, the inauguration not really open to the public because of COVID and obviously because of all the security concerns. And I just feel like the next 24 hours could get weird again. Last week, I was heartbroken after everything that happened the Wednesday before at the Capitol. And we have all been through so much together here in the War Room since March 14th and just watched so much of the craziness. And we have always, followed the tradition of not getting into political debates here, that this is a place where we can talk about everything respectfully, but that we're not disrespectful. And it's not a political, this isn't a political show. However, we do talk about current events and things that are going on in the world. And this is a place that we've all been able to find support for each other and to be able to lean on each other when someone, the comment section, every week you guys are talking about someone that that's having a hard time. And then the comments flood with, "We're here for you. We love you. Feel better. Let us know if you need anything." And the War Room has always been that. It's always been a place that everybody could lean on each other. And I feel like, which is ironic, I know, with the name. But I just feel like we need to continue to do that and to continue to be there for each other, and also to try our best to continue to hold everything together. Last week, we talked a lot about those police officers that literally saved our democracy, that saved the lives of the vice president and the speaker and the Senate majority leader and all of the members of Congress and their aides and the certified electoral votes that were all inside that building. And I don't know if you guys saw the interviews late last week with some of the officers. Did you see the one, Officer Fanone? He was the one with the short kind of grayish hair and the big spiderweb tattoo on his neck. He's a narcotics officer at DC Metro. And he was in uniform in the Capitol building and was dragged outside and was very candid in his interview, talking about how they were taking his magazines off of his belt and people were chanting, "Shoot him with his own gun." And he talked about why he didn't just start shooting people, because he knew that they would get his gun away from him and then he would have given them a reason to kill him. And in that moment of trying to save himself as he was dragged out of the Capitol building and they were ripping his safety equipment off of him and he was sprayed in the face by bear spray, that he just started yelling that he had kids. And some of the people in the crowd, I think that got them out of their rage phase, and it sobered them up long enough to realize what they were doing. And those people kind of shielded Officer Fanone until his partner was able to kind of get him and drag him back into the Capitol and kind of protect him from the crowd. And the reporter asked him if there was anything that he wanted to say to the people that helped to save him from the rest of the angry mob. And his quote was amazing. He said, I want to say thank you. And in the same breath, he said, "But fuck you for being there." And his interview, I think, out of everybody really hit home for me when he had to yell, "I have kids," to stop his fellow Americans from attacking him in uniform on the steps of the Capitol building. And so I am just hoping that tomorrow, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your political beliefs and your policy opinions, I really hope that next week we're not talking about some huge, awful tragedy here in the War Room. That I'm just hoping that we can find a way. The election's over. The lawsuits were filed. The judges and courts made their decisions. All the time in the world was there to present evidence. The electors voted. The Congress certified those votes. The winners were declared. And I'm just really hoping now, again, it might be naive, that we can take a step in some kind of positive direction after tomorrow, even if it's a small step. And so I just wanted to finish the show tonight, just wanting to take one of our big, deep collective breaths on the show and to remind you guys that there's still so much good. I consider, I consider you guys to be this amazing group of people that, for the most part, always seems to find a way to focus on your similarities instead of your differences, myself included. And I just hope that we can continue to do that moving forward, because the War Room is this little example of, I think, what's possible, that a bunch of people can get together for common goals and, to be able to make positive differences, that we can band together and support our veterans, that we can band together and help those that are in need and sick, and, to help kids and to tackle some of the real problems that we're facing, to be able to support our local businesses and get our economy back on track. And I know that we can all do that if we work together. And so I'm hoping that as we move forward, that we're going to be able to use the War Room as a force for good and a way to organize efforts and to stay positive and to do what we can to focus on similarities and focus on common good. And so I just wanted you guys to just hear a little something positive. You're going to see and hear. It's really hard to see all of our troops in uniforms kind of shutting down the Capitol, and it makes me sad. And when I put the news on, and it's like, on one hand, I don't want to watch the news, but on the other hand, I want to know if something's going on. And it's been really hard, this inner struggle of me, whether or not I want to turn the TV on every day. And the sadness that I feel sometimes is so overwhelming. One of the things that I started doing this year since New Year's, I talked to you guys about it in the last couple of weeks, is I started just reading, just to be able to turn the TV off and not look at the computer and not look at my phone. And I started just reading like vampire stories and stuff just to keep myself occupied. I bought these books that were more than 700 pages, and it was a trilogy of books called The Discovery of Witches. I read all 3 of them. I finished the 3rd book 2 days ago, just since January 1st. Each one of these books is over 700 pages because any downtime that I had, I've been trying to, if I'm not working on the War Room, if I'm not working on the podcast, I was just looking for some kind of distraction, something to get my mind off of everything. And I ripped through those books, one a week. And now my books are finished. And I have that sadness, like when you finish a Netflix show and there's no more new episodes. So I hope we all make it through tomorrow. Okay. Be safe, guys. To any of our law enforcement, to any of our National Guard troops that have been activated to protect our state house, or any of the, federal buildings downtown Boston, or just anybody that has been activated to kind of make sure that they're keeping the peace tomorrow. Thank you guys for what you're doing. Please be careful. To everybody else, stay safe, obviously, and just take a collective deep breath and just remember that, we're in an amazing place where we can get together like this every week and be able to voice opinions and have those opinions be heard. And I love you guys. So be positive. It's going to be okay. But once again, we just need to stick together in order to do that. And so that's why I'm so grateful that you guys join me here every Tuesday night, because it makes me feel like there's some hope that if we can do it as the group that we are, that collectively larger and larger groups are going to be able to do that as well and be able to put things back together again the way that they belong. So you guys are amazing. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget that episode 33 of the Mistress Carrie podcast featuring Maddie Blake goes live at midnight. It's definitely uplifting. There's some great old stories in there, some really interesting information on Oak Island and all his podcasts and everything else that he's been up to this year. That all goes live at midnight. And then, of course, the sit rep goes live every day at 3 a.m. So even if you get up super early, the sit rep is always there. We're ready to fill you in with music headlines and industry updates, TV stuff, whatever it is. So you get the sit reps. So don't forget to hit subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast if you haven't listened to it yet. And before next week, I promise I will get the Pug Cam back up and running. So good night, guys. I'll see you later.